Mrs. Keizer, how is the Netherlands committed to cooperation in Europe?
Well, very much. For instance, next week I will be meeting the D9+, which is actually a meeting online, of course, with at least 11 colleagues of mine in the European Union to further discuss what Cedric and O put down in our paper, what we think should be happening with legislation on AI. But that's not everything. Of course, as I mentioned before, Horizon Europe is a very important program, but in the Netherlands, we put our money where our mouth is, I believe is the correct translation. And there is a Digital Europe program where we co-fund with 70 million euros too. And of course, human-centric AI is important, but what does it mean? And we have to be specific on what it means, so we can lead by example the rest of the world in what it means for our citizens. And that's very important, because if citizens, consumers don't trust AI, they won't use it. And that's not only economically speaking a bad thing, but it's also a bad thing when you take into regard all the positive aspects of it.
Yeah, we'll actually be talking a little bit more about that subject later during this broadcast. So it is one of the things we'll definitely be touching upon. Now, of course, elections are imminent. Does AI play a role at all in those elections? And if so, how?
Well, I should hope so. I should hope so, because it's one of the big issues, developments for years to come. So every political party who wants to be part of that future should take it into consideration. People just have to look into all different programs they have published or will publish to see how they look into how they see the developments in the digital future, of course. And that's not the only thing which is important. Also, how political parties see the cooperation between, for instance, French tech and TechLeap. We've got both. Our countries have great ecosystem, but they have to connect to make sure that our talented AI developers or our startups are sure and confident that on European soil there is enough for them to stay and development their company here.
So to retain our talent.
Yes.
Let's take a quick look at our chat and see what's been coming in. Koen has a question about small businesses. Yeah, I think that's a good question. The question is how we can get those involved, because usually we speak about the big tech companies, but small businesses might be just as important.
Well, they are. An ecosystem is an ecosystem because of the fact that not only big companies, which you need. I emphasize the fact that we need big companies. Philips was mentioned before when it comes to public health, for instance. But we also need SMEs. And in the 70 million co-funding of Digital Europe, there is an emphasis on SMEs too.
So it's an important focus point, and see how we can get those along as well. I think you mentioned this a little bit already in one of your earlier answers. It's a question about education. How can we educate the current workforce to make sure that they're, ahead of their time and can continue to contribute?
Yeah, well, in the schools in the Netherlands, in the programs which schools have to follow, digital is becoming part of it. My colleague, the Minister of Education, is responsible, and if I'm not mistaken, it's already or will be very soon part of what we learn our children, but also in different programs from my ministry, but also from sociale zaken.
Social affairs.
Social affairs, thank you very much. My colleague Wouter Koolmees has also got some programs with money behind it to school our working force as we speak. But of course, people have to be interested themselves too.
And they need the motivation. That's a very good starting point. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And we'll see you later during this afternoon again. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.